Good evening. Welcome to the Community Awareness Committee's January panel discussion. Our topic this evening is being an educated driver. I am Trish Steiner, Chair of the Community Awareness Committee. We are a committee of the Neighborhood Safety Commission. The Neighborhood Safety Commission is comprised of individuals appointed by the chairman and the district commissioners. We welcome you and thank you for attending this evening, and welcome those of you who are watching on Channel 23. Our committee members are Vicki Plunkett, Pearl Roberts, and Joel Cope. We have file cards available for written questions. Please turn your cell phones off or on silent, as your phone will interfere with the broadcasting of this discussion. Thank you. Our discussion this evening is, as I said, being an educated driver, and our moderator this evening is Kim McCoy, Director of Victims Witness Unit, Office of the District Attorney. We especially want to thank Kim and our distinguished panel members that Kim will introduce to you.
Good evening. My name's Kim, and I'm honored to be your panel moderator for this evening. In my role in the Victim Witness Unit, I often work with victims who have been injured in traffic incidents or just involved in traffic incidents in some way. In some incidents, their lives are forever changed, and in others, they don't really know the impact of what has happened to them. So I'm happy that we're going to be presenting to our public the way to become an educated driver this evening, so that everybody has a level of expectation when they're on the roads or when they're passengers in vehicles. We're going to take just a second to introduce our panel members, to put faces to names, and then after we introduce each of them, we will learn more about them as about their individual agencies. So first we have from the Georgia State Patrol, excuse me, let me get to my notes, Trooper Trawick. This trooper has been with GSP for 2 years. He worked radio prior to that, and prior to that, he was in the private industry and has made the leap into serving and protecting the citizens here in Cobb County. So, Trooper Trawick, we appreciate you being with us this evening. Next, we have Solicitor General Barry Morgan. Barry is a native of Cobb County, having gone to North Cobb High School, graduated from Georgia State University with a degree in music education, and then graduated summa cum laude from John Marshall School of Law in Atlanta. Previous to his work as the Solicitor General for Cobb County, Barry was an Assistant District Attorney. He was appointed by Governor Zell Miller in 1998 to be the Solicitor General for Cobb County, and has been elected to that position 5 times, most recently winning 62% of the vote. Barry is involved in various, too numerous to name, civic and charitable associations here in Cobb County, and has been recognized in the state of Georgia and by his colleagues with an outstanding performance as an elected official by the Cobb Republican Women, receiving their Trumpet Award in January, and in March received a Mothers Against Drunk Driving Award, and they named Barry the Prosecutor of the Year for the state of Georgia. Sorry, I stumbled over that a little bit. Lots of information on the bio. Then we have Officer Nick Sarkadakis from Marietta Police Department. Officer Sarkadakis has been with the police department since 2009. The first 4 years he was assigned to uniform patrol, and since then has been with the STEP unit, and I'll let you explain what STEP does in just a few minutes, okay? Yes, prior to coming to Marietta, he was in the United States Army as a military police officer, and he also is a native of Cobb County. So thank you, Officer Sarkadakis, for being with us tonight. And then our final, but certainly not least, panel member is Officer Jones with Cobb County Police. Officer Jones has been with Cobb Police for 18 years, serving in general road officer duties with Precinct 2, as well as being involved and assigned to the STEP unit for Cobb County, which will also let you explain what that means later as we move along throughout the panel. So thank you to our distinguished panel members for being with us this evening. Obviously, for those in the community who are familiar with law enforcement, you know that not all of our law enforcement agencies are represented. Obviously, we also are served in our community by other various city police departments, as well as the Cobb County Sheriff's Office. And all of those agencies serve very important roles in our community and are very active in our community. But for tonight's panel topic, you guys were selected to be our panel members, and again, we appreciate you for being here with us tonight. So we know your names, and we put your names to your faces. I want to ask if you'll take just a few minutes, each of you, and tell us about your department, what your department responsibilities are, and then anything you would like for our audience to know about you individually as a police officer that we might not have mentioned yet. Trooper Trawick?
Georgia State Patrol's primary duties of our department is crash investigation. We do this statewide. Every county in the state has troopers that respond to crashes. When we're not doing that, we're, of course, enforcing traffic law, speeders, seat belts, things like that, trying to keep the roadways safe. That's our primary goal, is for public safety, as is all the other agencies here. The difference in a trooper and a city officer really is what we do and how we do it. We're focused primarily on traffic law, traffic offense. We don't do a lot of criminal cases. Every now and then we do have things that dive into those areas, but for the most part, we're strictly related to crash investigation and traffic law, and that's pretty much the gist of our department.
Okay, thank you, Trooper. Solicitor Morgan?
The Solicitor General is a prosecutor similar to the District Attorney, but the difference is that the Solicitor General prosecutes misdemeanor-only crimes and traffic offenses that occur within their jurisdiction. A District Attorney has a responsibility of prosecuting felonies and any misdemeanors that are associated with it. So any misdemeanor that stands alone, there's no felony associated with it, is a responsibility of the Solicitor General to prosecute. Not all counties have Solicitors General. There are 62 Solicitors General across the state of Georgia, and 24 of us are full-time. What the Solicitor General allows for in those larger jurisdictions like Cobb County is for the District Attorney to concentrate on the very serious felons, murders, rapes, armed robberies, child molestations, those types of things. And it allows the Solicitor General to concentrate on the very serious misdemeanors like driving under the influence, domestic violence, vehicular homicide in the second degree, and various thefts that occur within the county. The Solicitor General is responsible for all traffic offenses that occur in unincorporated Cobb County. And we also get any cases that a city court, like the City Court of Marietta, would, where the defendant would ask for a jury trial. Those cases come to us, and we're happy to prosecute those. We are one of the busiest courts in the state, with over 100,000 cases a year that we prosecute. And we're very unique in the state because there are several other Solicitors General who do not have a traffic court associated with their state court. Our traffic court is a part of state court, a division of state court. Many of these other jurisdictions like DeKalb County and Fulton County have separate courts. Gwinnett County also has a separate court with a separate prosecutor responsible for all the traffic offenses.
Thank you, Barry. Officer Circadakis?
Yes, ma'am. Police officer with the City of Marietta. We serve the citizens of Marietta proper, which includes anything within the actual jurisdiction or the city limits of Marietta. It's sometimes confused with the unincorporated Marietta. A lot of Marietta mailing addresses out there, but we actually serve only the city limits within Marietta. Like you said before, I'm assigned to the traffic unit, which is the Selective Traffic Enforcement Program, or the STEP unit. We're tasked with the duty of investigating any serious injury or fatality accidents, as well as some other traffic duties as well. But again, we serve under Chief Flynn, which is our police chief, and he reports to the city manager and the mayor and the city council of the City of Marietta.
Thank you, Officer. Officer Jones?
I'm Officer Pete Jones, the Cobb County Police Department. Metro Atlanta has, it's unique in the state of Georgia. We have divided the law enforcement aspects and actually working the jail. The sheriff's office controls the jail, works civil papers and things like that. The county police department is responsible for responding to 911 calls and law enforcement in the unincorporated areas of the county, as opposed to city officers like Officer Circadakis. That's the primary function of the Cobb County Police Department is response to 911 calls and public safety in the unincorporated areas of the county. And we can respond in a city. If we're driving through a city and see a violation or an emergency situation, we can respond within city limits. I'll take a minute to speak about STEP, particularly in Cobb. We have a STEP unit that's composed of 10 officers and 3 sergeants, and our primary responsibility of this unit is to investigate the serious injury and fatal crashes in Cobb, as well as conducting traffic enforcement. This is a shot of actually a double fatal a couple of years ago on Austell Road. And this is a scene photograph while we were processing the scene. And we do shut the road down. We treat it as a crime scene, limit access into that scene until we have completed our investigation of that crash. Traffic fatalities are very underreported. Well, not underreported, but many people don't realize how many traffic fatalities we have in the United States a year. In 2012, which is the last year that national traffic stats are available, there were over 33,000 Americans killed in traffic crashes in the U.S. So that's why we do what we do. In 2014 in Cobb, we investigated 37 deaths associated with traffic crashes, and that's just in the unincorporated areas of the county. That doesn't include city crashes. Marietta and Smyrna investigate their own fatalities. And primarily what we focus on in these fatal crashes, failing to maintain lane is very dangerous. That contributed to 9 deaths. Failing to yield the right-of-way contributed to 9 deaths. A pedestrian failing to yield to a vehicle or a pedestrian under the influence contributed to 8 deaths. And DUI was the primary cause of 7 deaths. So these are traffic violations that we do focus on. Just very briefly, seatbelt use is very important. We try to communicate to the public the importance of wearing seatbelts. This is a photograph of a Jeep Liberty that was involved in a quadruple fatal, which is the most fatalities that we have had in one vehicle since I've been with STEP in Cobb County. And the primary cause of 4 people dying in this crash is they were all 4 in the back seat of this Jeep Liberty. None of them had seatbelts on. If you go to the next slide, this is a diagram of the scene. It was on 575 North. The vehicle failed to maintain its lane, ran off the road and overturned, rolled several times, and the 4 passengers in the back seat who were not restrained were all ejected and all killed. So the importance of wearing seatbelts is apparent. This is a DUI and speed-related crash. The driver of this vehicle failed to maintain her lane on Piedmont Road, was under the influence of alcohol, and was traveling in excess of 90 miles an hour there on Piedmont Road when she ran into the tree. If you go on to the next slide, this is just basically a scene diagram of that crash. The impact with the tree broke that, it was a Chevy Equinox, broke it completely in half. Some vehicles, especially modern vehicles, have crash data recorders. We can retrieve information out of that vehicle to assist us in our reconstruction of these crashes. The highlighted line there is the vehicle speed that was reported in that crash at half-second intervals from 2.5 seconds to 1/2 second prior to the impact. And you can see that she was traveling at 91 miles an hour just before impact, and it is a 45-mile-an-hour zone. So excessive speed and DUI were the big contributors to that one. And one more that was a speed and DUI crash, again, a single vehicle into a tree, and unfortunately resulted in the death of this driver as well. And this was on Six Flags Drive a few years ago. Okay. I'd like to take a minute and talk about a relatively new enforcement program, a safety program that we have in Cobb. It was implemented in 2012. It's the school bus stop arm system, and there's a brief clip here, about a 3-minute clip, that we'll play to explain that system.
And we want you to be the ones to tell your parents, tell your friends, your babysitters, your grandparents, your brothers and sisters. Stop means stop.
In 2009, Mountain View Elementary School student Carla Campos was struck by a passing vehicle as she exited her school bus. In order to prevent future tragedies, Cobb County School District sought out solutions to increase stop arm enforcement. Georgia law states that a driver meeting or overtaking from either direction of a stopped school bus, which is operating the alternating flashing red lights, is required to stop before reaching that school bus and should not proceed until the bus has resumed motion or the visual signals are no longer displayed. To help fight the growing problem of school bus stop arm running, the Georgia legislature authorized school districts to deploy cameras on the side of school buses.
We're running over 970 buses in our daily route schedule with over 41,000 bus stops twice a day. We sat down with our fleet manager, Mike Warner, and we discussed adding a couple of stop arm cameras on a couple of our buses and move that bus around based on where we hear from drivers saying we've got a lot of violations out there. So we were going to experiment long before the law was ever passed.
Cobb County, one of the first in the nation to add stop arm cameras to their school buses, has now partnered with American Traffic Solutions to bring its patented Crossing Guard school bus stop arm solution. Once the school bus stops and the stop arm is deployed, Crossing Guard is activated. If the camera senses that a violation has occurred, it records the event and securely transmits it for processing. After an initial review, law enforcement verifies that a violation occurred and then issues a citation. Fines for photo-enforced school bus stop arm violations are non-criminal traffic infractions. These are civil penalties. No points are awarded, and the violations are not reported to the vehicle owner's insurance company.
Once a violation is captured on the cameras, it'll be reviewed by the civilian personnel and then in turn sent to the police department for evaluation. If there's a violation that has occurred, the police department will issue that citation.
These cameras will allow us to be more proactive in our enforcement of the stop arm violations, and hopefully we'll get the message out to the public that serious consequences can occur when you're on these stop arms.
With ATS and the Cobb County Police Department and School District working together, we can further ensure the safety of our children.
So that video can obviously be found on YouTube
Yes.
if parents or children want to view it again, and excellent information about school crossings.
If you'd back up one slide, the bottom line here, ATS Crossing Guard in Cobb County, is the title of that video on YouTube. So if you'd like to search for it on YouTube, search for it under those terms and it will appear. Just briefly, this is what to expect if you are caught passing a school bus with a camera system. This is the notice of violation that will be mailed to you, that will describe the date, time, and location of the offense. It includes some photos that were taken from that school bus stop arm system, and also specifically down at the bottom, it shows a P.O. box in Cincinnati, Ohio, for the payment to be mailed to. I wanted to show that because a lot of people who get this in their mailbox may think that it is some type of a scam. That is actually a legitimate processing center for this payment. So if you see this appear in your mailbox, they want you to send $300 to a P.O. box in Cincinnati. This is actually a notice of the violation. There's a link on this as well for you to go online and link to the video of your vehicle passing that stopped school bus. So you can find all the information that you need here on this notice of violation.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to just reiterate a few things that the panel members have said, because we do have a wealth of public safety officers in Cobb County. So a city officer responds within the city limits of that particular city
Yes, ma'am.
to 911 calls for assistance, crimes, anything reported to 911, traffic incidents.
Yes, ma'am.
A county officer responds anywhere in Cobb County proper,
Correct?
can also respond in a city,
Yes.
but primarily your duties are with Cobb County proper.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, incorporated Cobb County.
Unincorporated
Cobb County, right.
For example, a city like Mableton that's not incorporated, we respond to incidents in Mableton.
Very good point. Thank you so much.
I don't know if this makes the situation more convoluted or not, but the city of Marietta and Cobb County Police have a great relationship, as we do with all of our jurisdictions that we have in the county. So we have mutual aid agreements where we definitely help each other out. There've been several times where the county police have called for assistance near the city, and of course, city police officers are going to respond. Any police officer is going to respond just as a trooper would if he was in the area. So sometimes we get a little mixed up, but for the most part, you're correct that we stay in our city limits and handle those calls for service, just as the county stays in their in the county jurisdiction and handles those calls for service.
Very good. And then, of course, we have GSP, and your jurisdiction. Remind us again of your jurisdiction.
Well, the state patrol's jurisdiction is anything inside the state.
Mm-hmm.
Post 9 Marietta, where I work out of, our jurisdiction is where we concentrate as Cobb County. In this case, we would be considered, I guess, an assisting agency to these guys over here, they call us from time to time if they need help, traffic, this, that, the other thing. They work the majority of the serious crashes and fatal crashes, and we handle, everything else. That frees them up to do other things within their city limits, off the interstates.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Morgan, if you can explain to us, you've told us what your office does. Explain how you work with each of these agencies.
We get cases really from all of them, depending on the circumstances that bring it to our office. And along with them, we have a myriad of other jurisdictions that we get cases from. Primarily, our traffic offenses are going to come from the Cobb County Police Department. We do get GSP cases, both from Post 9 and the post at Charlie Brown Airport, as well, that occur in the unincorporated sections of Cobb County along the interstates primarily, and things like that. If Officer Circadekas writes a citation to a person in the city of Marietta, and that person goes to the Marietta Municipal Court and doesn't like what the prosecutor there has to say, they can ask for a jury trial. And if they have that jury trial, then it comes to our jurisdiction. If any of these agencies, any of the city agencies, the Georgia State Patrol, Cobb County, investigate a fatality crash, second-degree vehicular homicide, all of those come to our office, and we prosecute those. Let me take a moment to differentiate between a misdemeanor and a felony vehicular homicide. For a felony vehicular homicide, there has to be an underlying offense that involves driving under the influence, eluding a police officer, reckless driving. Those have to be the underlying driving offense for it to become a felony, and then it comes to your office and you deal with it. Any other traffic offense that directly results in the death of someone else, then that is a second-degree vehicular homicide and a misdemeanor. A prime example of many of the types of cases that we get, and I'm sure Officer Jones has investigated over the years, is an individual sitting at a traffic light and they turn across traffic. Their wife is sitting in the passenger seat and the car gets T-boned. Well, that individual has failed to yield to oncoming traffic, and that results in a second-degree vehicular homicide. And I think Officer Jones probably can corroborate that many of our second-degree vehicular homicides oftentimes involve family members, because they're together in a car, and I don't want to deem anything a minor offense when someone dies, but a minor traffic offense, and in the result of that someone dies, becomes a second-degree vehicular homicide. The difference in those two also is the punishment that can be obtained. A misdemeanor is a maximum of 12 months and a $1,000 fine. I believe a felony vehicular homicide is 15 years in prison, and I don't know what the fine amount, but it's more than $1,000, I can tell you that much. We also get cases from various other entities that people may not think about because we do misdemeanor offenses. Cobb County Animal Control, which is a division of the Cobb County Police Department, but has countywide jurisdiction because of an agreement. They do animal control in the cities as well. So we get animal control cases from all over the county. We have several national parks and state parks in Cobb County, and each one of those jurisdictions have a police force that write citations as well. We also get citations from all of the colleges in Cobb County. Each one of those colleges has their own police force, and as you saw in the video, the Cobb County school system has their own police department as well, who are all, I believe they're all certified officers at this point as well. So we get a number of cases from a lot of different jurisdictions from all across the county.
Okay, thank you so much for those explanations. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and ask some specific questions about traffic violations. There are no dumb questions. And most of us took a driving test at 15 or 16 and probably haven't looked at a traffic manual since then. So some of the questions are very pointed as to what's legal versus what's not legal and the penalties for such. and then we'll get a little bit into some what-if situations. So I'm going to just go down the panel, starting with the trooper. If anybody else would like to jump in and add anything, please feel free to do so. Just say, I'd like to add, so that we know to switch the camera in your direction, okay? So the first question is, what is the law concerning funeral processions? Is it legal to pass a funeral procession either on a surface street and or on a highway, and what's the distinguishment there? Trooper?
I just have to have that code section pulled up. Funeral sessions have the right of way in all instances except for vehicles that are not part of the procession can pass or go around a funeral procession if directed to by law enforcement. Generally, on a two-lane road, it's illegal to pass a funeral procession in either direction. It's certainly illegal to become part of the funeral procession with the intent of getting around traffic. On a four-lane highway, the oncoming traffic is allowed to continue on. And let's see, what else we got? Two-lane highway is the no-no. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morgan, let's talk about distracted driving. What do things like applying makeup, shaving, reading, texting, what constitutes distracted driving, and what would cause an officer to pull somebody over for that? And then the follow-up is, what's the penalty for that?
Okay, I'm going to give you a lawyer answer, and the lawyer answer is it depends. It depends on what the facts and circumstances of the case are. In the example that you gave about someone putting makeup on, let's say that you're traveling down I-75, it's rush hour traffic, it's bumper to bumper, and you look over into the car next to you and you see someone applying makeup, or as I've seen, an individual with a newspaper over the steering wheel. You know, let me back up. The statute that deals with exercising due care, which is what the statute's called, is a three-part statute. And you have to satisfy all three elements before one can be cited or convicted under that statute. The first one is there's an action. So in our little scenario, the applying the makeup would be the action. The second part of that statute is it must lead to a distraction. So you're applying the makeup and you're distracted from the safe operation of your vehicle. And that's the third element, the safe operation of your vehicle, because that's what it's all about. When we're on the roadway and when we're driving, that's our main focus and our main responsibility. So if anything detracts you from that, it may wind up in a citation for you. I can tell you that police officers are not looking down the road to find people that are, reaching down to pick up a comb that they dropped or something like that. What's going to draw their attention is some type of unsafe driving. They're either going to be touching the white line, they're going to be totally out of their lane, they're almost going to hit some other car, or they're going to come up too fast on the car in front of them. The officer has a duty to maintain the safety of the roadways. So they're going to investigate that. Their first primary responsibility is to make sure that that person isn't under the influence of alcohol to the extent that they're a less safe driver. So they're going to stop the car, they're going to conduct an investigation, and if that investigation, well, number one, rules out the DUI, but leads to, well, whatever activity, whatever action you happen to be doing was so distracting you that it kept you from safely operating your vehicle, then they're going to issue a citation for a failure to exercise due care as a driver. And what a lot of people don't understand, the different roles between the police officer's responsibility and the prosecutor's responsibility, is the officer is under a standard of probable cause. So is it more probable or not that this individual has violated this particular statute? When it gets to us, we have the responsibility of prosecuting it and bringing it to court and proving it beyond a reasonable doubt. So we look to the officer who has gathered all this evidence. What was the evidence of the distraction? What was the evidence of unsafe driving? To put that case together to make sure that that we've got the evidence necessary to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. What a lot of people don't understand is prosecutors and police officers are under duty when a case is pending not to talk about a particular case, because that would be unfair to the defendant. So we are under a lot of ethical responsibilities not to talk about specific facts in any particular case. And so sometimes in cases, headlines can be made, but they don't have all of the facts about what happened in a particular case. So we always want to make sure that we wait until the end of the case to make sure before we start making opinions about something. In a case like that, all traffic offenses in the state of Georgia are misdemeanor crimes. You heard in the video that the stop arm violation is a civil penalty. We also have a passing a school bus, which is a criminal penalty. If the officer actually observes a person pass a school bus, they can write a citation. It's a misdemeanor. 12 months, $1,000 fine can be imposed, just like any other misdemeanor sentence. So in this failure to exercise due care case that we're talking about, that's a misdemeanor as well, maximum punishment of 12 months in jail and a $1,000 fine if the judge decided to do that. Is that going to be generally what happens in a case like that? No. If a person has a good, clean driving history and there's no other aggravating circumstances, you may be talking $150 to $200 fine for an incident like that. The judge may impose a defensive driving course, and so there are a lot of times we hear about cases in the news media that make big splash and big headlines until, as Paul Harvey used to say, we hear the rest of the story and realize that sometimes individuals are dangers on the roadway, and we just need to make sure that we stop them from being that way.
Absolutely. Thank
It's
you.
also 4 points if an officer sees you passing a school bus, 4 points taken off your license. So there's another reason not to do it. That's different from, I understand the civil thing with the cameras is no points. Did I hear that right?
Correct.
The symptoms of being distracted are very similar to DUI. I tell kids in schools this all the time. If you're DUI, if you're texting and driving, if you're reading your homework assignment, if you're reaching in the back to get your whatever in the back seat, you're failing to maintain, you're not traveling at a consistent speed with possibly the traffic around you, all sorts of bad things happen. The end result could be the same by distracted driving as it is for driving under the influence.
Right.
So safety, safety, safety for everybody else that's doing the right thing is why we do what we do.
And let me add one more thing about that particular statute, because it is newsworthy right now. There are certain exemptions in that statute, and it's the use of a citizens band radio, a ham-operated radio, which I don't see too many people having in their automobiles. And it also excludes the proper use of a cell phone, except they have specifically carved out texting while driving is an offense no matter what. And I believe reading emails, use of a smartphone, basically checking your Facebook while you're going down the roadway would not be exempt under that statute. But if you're properly using a cell phone while you're driving, talking to someone on the telephone, that is actually exempt from that statute.
Okay. Thank you for that distinguishment. Officer Sarkadakis.
Yes, ma'am. You're getting better and better at it.
Thank you. That's my goal. Let's talk about turning lanes, because sometimes you see turning lanes and they're fairly lengthy and they have the divided lines, the dotted lines, and sometimes they don't. So tell us what the traffic rules are regarding turning lanes.
Yes, ma'am. There's a couple code sections that cover traffic flow as far as straight lanes, turning lanes, center turn lanes. A lot of questions always come up about center turn lanes leading up to left-hand or right-hand turn lanes. A lot of people don't realize that you can only be in a center turn lane for 300 feet. And once you enter that center turn lane, you can only turn left from that lane. There's a couple reasons for that. That lane wasn't designed for travel, for one. People enter that lane repeatedly to make their left-hand turns. So when people use that as a travel lane, they create an unsafe situation where they're coming up on their turn to make their left, but somebody's coming down that travel lane. It just sets a recipe for a collision. A lot of people, and I know you've probably all seen this on the road, people use the center turn lane as a merging lane. It's actually a violation. Once you enter that center turn lane, you're only allowed again to travel 300 feet, and you're only allowed to turn left. So using that center turn lane to get over into that lane that you want to travel in is a violation, again, because of that unsafe situation where people are entering that lane to turn left and you're using it as a travel lane. A lot of problems that we have as far as turn lanes are concerned, the square is actually a good example. It is a bit confusing, 2 one-way streets paralleled by 2-way streets. A problem that we see a lot, especially at South Park and West Park Square, there's 2 straight lanes, a dedicated right turn lane and a dedicated left turn lane. We see a lot of people will turn left from that straight lane, superseding that left turn lane. It creates a lot of problems. For one, you've got 2 cars trying to merge into lanes, and that's a heavy pedestrian crosswalk, and the pedestrian's looking at the left turner, not the guy coming out of the straight lane. Like I said, there are a couple code sections that govern those type of violations, but typically center turn lanes for left-hand turns and the dedicated turn lanes are the lanes that you need to turn from.
Okay.
Could I make one, because the legislature changed the law last year that some people aren't aware of. If you are in a situation where you've got 2 turn lanes and you're going into your turn, you have to stay in the lane that you're in. In other words, the left-hand lane has to go into the left-hand lane. The right-hand lane has to go into the right-hand lane. Consequently, if there's only 1 turn lane, then you're supposed to only go into that left-hand lane. How many people do we see that cross all the way across to however many lanes there are to get into the right-hand lane? They're supposed to turn into that left-hand lane, establish themselves in that lane before they move over to the other lanes. And a lot of people aren't aware of that law and that change in the law last year.
Thank you. Officer Jones, we've talked about driving safety. Let's talk about vehicle safety. Do we have responsibilities as citizens to ensure that our vehicles are safe, that our tires are inflated, that our brakes work, and can any of those things or lack of those things be violations?
Yes, there's quite a long chapter in Title 40, which is motor vehicle law, that covers equipment and the responsibilities of the driver to maintain safe equipment. There's no safety inspections in Georgia like there are in other states, but it is incumbent on the driver of the vehicle to make sure that the vehicle is safe. For instance, tread depth on tires has to be at least 2/32 of an inch deep. There's tread wear bars on the tire, basically that gives you an indication if you're getting close to that 2/32 inch. If you can see those tread wear bars across the tire, your tires need to be replaced. There's no specific statutes on the integrity of a tire, but I can tell you from experience, I've worked several fatalities where a dry rotted tire blew out and caused the vehicle to overturn. And even though there's no specific statute that says your tire cannot be dry rotted, there's a general equipment safety statute that says you do have to keep your vehicle in proper maintenance and care and not operate an unsafe vehicle. So you could always be found guilty under that basically catch-all violation.
Okay. Trooper, let's talk about officer discretion.
Yes, ma'am.
When you pull someone over for speeding, are you required to give them a ticket? What is your discretion in those incidents?
I'm not required to give a citation at all. I try to ask, where you headed? Is there an emergency? Try to ascertain certain pieces of information. Then go a little further. If there's a problem, we have ways to carry that a little further to find out if we're being told the truth, because I know this is going to shock you, but sometimes people don't tell us the truth.
No.
But we're not required to issue a citation at all. There are instances where, a warning is valid. There are instances where someone's got a legitimate need to be driving fast, and I will say, you're not going to make that whatever you're going to if you get killed in a crash because you're driving too fast. So please slow down and go on from here. it's up to me.
Okay. And I'm assuming with the city and the county, would you like to respond to that as well?
I would like to add to that as well. Believe it or not, there are no ticket quotas. There is no toaster for us at the end of the month if we brought in the most. Most traffic officers that you'll talk to, they're really trying to attain a few goals. One of those is voluntary compliance. We really want drivers to be safe drivers and to drive safely. That's all we're really looking for. Sometimes we can achieve that voluntary compliance through a citation. We would probably prefer to achieve that compliance through education and awareness. A lot of times people are unaware of the laws and the dangers it creates because it seems like such a simple infraction or violation. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal in the moment. But when you step back and you look at it, especially from our point of view, where we see the smallest mistake turn into the death of a person, it becomes a big picture. So we definitely do strive to obtain that voluntary compliance through the education. The citations come in handy. I don't mean to use that term exactly, but they come in handy in documenting bad drivers using the point system that we have in Georgia. When those citations are issued and those moving violations are recorded, we start to see a trend with drivers. And when we see that trend, the state steps in and says, you know what, you're a bad driver. We're taking your license from you until you fix this, till you obtain the defensive driving courses, or you correct the problem that we repeatedly see. Sometimes that's done through a citation. Sometimes it can be achieved through just education and talking. We understand people are in certain situations when we come into contact with them. We hate to be the ones that give the citation, but sometimes that's what we need to do to achieve our goals.
Right. And if everybody would behave, you wouldn't have to give the citations.
I'd be out of a job probably.
That's right. Absolutely. Officer Jones, you have anything to add?
I just concur with everything that's been said here. We have a policy in Cobb County. The Cobb County Police Department has a thick policy manual that tells us how to engage in every part of our job, but there is a policy on traffic enforcement. It specifically says that traffic enforcement should be an educational experience for the violator rather than an immediate punishment for the violator. So we can access on the computer system when we check your driver's license to see if you have a pattern of violations. In Cobb County, even if you're written a warning on the computerized system, it stays there in that system. And if I stop you again in 2 weeks and see that you were already written a warning for this violation and you're continuing to engage in that behavior, you may be more likely to be cited instead of getting another warning.
Okay, thank you. I want to go back to Officer Jones. Let's talk about the law when a police officer has someone pulled over, or an ambulance is trying to get by, or a hero unit. What are the rules regarding those actions on behalf of drivers?
There's a couple of different prongs to that. There's a move over law that I think you're referring to, and that's if a police officer or a highway maintenance unit or an ambulance or a fire truck or any type of emergency equipment, including hero trucks, are stopped on the shoulder of a roadway with the emergency lights activated. Approaching motorists are required to move over a lane if they can do it safely. If they cannot make that lane change to the left, they have to slow down to a speed that's less than the speed limit and be prepared to stop. And that was put into place because there have been several deaths of highway construction workers in work zones where people just don't move over. They're driving too fast. They're in a hurry to get to where they're going. And it's unfortunately resulted in a death. So that's why that law was put into effect. The other part of yielding to an emergency vehicle is if you're driving down the road and there's a police officer or an ambulance or a fire truck approaching you from behind with lights and siren, you're required to move to the right and basically clear the way for that officer to get by. So many times I'm trying to get to a scene or to an emergency call with lights and siren, and people just stop in the lane in front of me, or they move to the left. It's just very unpredictable what somebody will do. But the law is in that situation, you have to move to the right, slow down, pull to the right edge of the curb and stop.
Okay.
And if I could piggyback on the move over violation, it is a mandatory $500 fine. The judge does not have discretion to reduce that fine. So people need to be aware that that's a pretty stiff fine, and for good reason. Again, I concur with what they've saying. We would much rather educate people about what the laws are and what the consequences of those laws are, rather than be in court assessing these fines, but it's for the safety of the officer and the citizens that they have pulled to the side of the roadway. And we want to make sure that those people are safe when they're doing the job that they need to do.
Okay.
The law was actually originally drafted because an East Point officer, I guess it was probably about 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago, conducted a traffic stop down in Atlanta, and a struggle ensued between the officer and the suspect that he was dealing with. It poured out into the roadway. The officer was subsequently run over by a motorist who failed to move over for the traffic stop. The officer was killed, and I believe the law was written into the legislature for him. I know we see police officers, emergency vehicles on the shoulder of the road, and I know a lot of attention doesn't get paid to it. And it's been in some debate here recently, within probably the last 6 months, that this move over law may not be the correct answer, but it really is. And when you feel a side view mirror whiz by your lower back on the side of the road, you would definitely understand why we value that law as we do, and why it has the stiff punishments that it carries.
Absolutely. So we haven't talked about what I think are common sense traffic issues. You don't run red lights. You don't speed up when the light turns yellow. That means slow down, not speed up. You don't run red lights, you don't run stop signs. You stop. You don't roll through them. And I'm just reiterating for new drivers or drivers who haven't seen a manual in a long time, some things, that we all need to be conscious of. But I want to give you an opportunity before we move away from specific violations. Are there things that we haven't covered that you would like to impress upon the audience the importance of certain traffic laws? We'll start with the trooper.
Well, going back to the crash videos we were watching, seatbelts. I remember growing up and parents, grandparents saying, so-and-so got in a crash and died because he was wearing a seatbelt. Well, that was the technology today. The car restraint systems, the seatbelts, the airbags, all the things that are in a vehicle designed to save your life in a crash, they don't work properly if you're not using them correctly and if you're not using them all. If you have the shoulder strap of your seatbelt behind your back, it's not doing what it's designed to do. And people say, well, I had it on. Yes, ma'am, but you weren't wearing it correctly. It's not going to save your life. People just don't realize, it can never happen to me. They don't realize how quickly these things occur, especially on the interstate. High-speed crashes, they're not fun to look at. They're not fun to investigate. And they're certainly not fun for the people involved in them, whether you're the at-fault party or not. So seatbelt, seatbelt, seatbelt. I can't preach it enough.
And one distinction, when you're going 55, if you're in a sudden stop and your body is propelled, your body's going faster.
Correct.
Than
well,
55.
It's still going 55 as your vehicle's slowing down.
Correct.
You become a projectile.
Right.
Correct.
And the people in the vehicle, if you get in a crash, say I'm buckled in, I'm driving, well, the 3 people in my vehicle are not. Well, they're all bouncing around, become projectiles in the crash, and body parts banging off each other do a tremendous amount of damage.
Absolutely. Okay. Mr. Morgan?
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about driving under the influence just a little bit. Many people just don't understand the effects of alcohol on their system, especially if they're young people who don't understand that. People who are small, people who don't normally drink alcohol, and how quickly they can become a less safe driver. The law in the state of Georgia is not that you're drunk, and that's how we charge a DUI. The law in the state of Georgia is if you are under the influence to such an extent that you are no longer a safe driver, then you can be cited, you can be convicted, and you can be punished as a DUI driver. Our state minimum level is .08, but even as low as .05, if we can show through these trained, experienced officers, through their administration of what we call field sobriety evaluations, that you don't have the divided attention that's necessary to operate a motor vehicle safely, then you are under the influence of alcohol. And I've watched thousands and thousands of DUI videos, and I think one of the things that and maybe these officers will agree with me, is that most people don't believe that they're actually under the influence of alcohol, even sometimes after they look at the videos and see how poorly they performed on these evaluations. I know that in years past with our prosecutors, we do a statewide prosecutor training on drugged drivers, drug and DUI drivers. And we actually conduct a test with some of these where we, under the supervision of these officers, we get them to a certain limit and under the influence of alcohol. And what many of them tell me is that that as they're at the lower levels, they realize, gosh, I am not in a position to drive a vehicle. But as they get higher and higher, their confidence level gets up, and they think they're perfectly fine as they're stumbling all over themselves on the side of the roadway. So we do somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 DUIs a year in unincorporated Cobb County. I'm not sure what the cities do because they do their own. So it's something that we still need to continue to educate folks on and make sure that they get from point A to point B safely for themselves and for the other people that are around them. We've got this thing called Uber now that folks can just call and get themselves home, and they don't need to be putting themselves and other people at danger driving under the influence of alcohol.
Very good point. Thank you for that reminder.
I'd like to add to the DUI conversation, and many people don't realize that you can be charged and convicted of DUI on other substances than alcohol. Illegal drugs, prescription medications, any substance that makes you a less safe driver, you can actually be charged with driving under the influence of that substance and convicted of the same DUI law as it applies to alcohol.
Thank you for that information as well. That's why our prescription bottles say don't take these certain prescriptions and drive. So
That heavy machinery is the car.
And yeah.
You're not talking about a bulldozer or a backhoe or anything like that.
exactly. Officer Sarkadakis, do you have anything, any other violations you would like to educate on?
I'll tell you, and it's kind of funny. It's set up this way that the trooper covered seat belts and the solicitor covered DUI. So I guess I'll take speed, which is obviously the next big thing. I know a speeding ticket aggravates the average citizen more than you know because it's such a common violation we see. You'll see a lot of officers focus on speed enforcement, not because we're trying to win that toaster like I referenced before, but it's really because the higher the speed, the more likely this is going to be a serious injury or fatality collision. Mm-hmm. Those speed and those seat belts and those DUI offenses, they all roll into it. We target those offenses more than probably a lot of other traffic violations. While I served on the STEP unit, I served a dual role as part of the HEAT unit as well, which is a state-funded program targeting speed, seat belts, DUI, and aggressive driving. We see it a lot in our crashes that speed, DUI, and seat belts are normally always our contributing factors outside of pedestrian crashes. Those cars that you saw in those pictures, they came apart because of speed. If that car had been doing half of what it was doing, we probably wouldn't have been talking about it. We wouldn't have pictures of it in a PowerPoint. So we really have to slow down and maintain those speeds. We need to be sober, and no matter what you do, just put your seatbelt on. I would not get phone calls in the middle of the night for fatality crashes if people would just put a seatbelt on and wear it correctly.
Absolutely. Officer Jones?
Those are the big ones.
Okay.
And that's what I was going to speak of too. But going back to speed, the faster you're going, the longer it takes you to bring your vehicle to a stop. Mm-hmm. The farther you go before you can react to take your foot off the gas and put it on the brake. That's what makes excessive speed so dangerous. There's a super speeder law that came into effect several years ago, 2008, 2009 timeframe, that is enhanced penalties if you're convicted of speeding in excess of a certain miles an hour over the limit. It's 85 miles an hour anywhere in the state. That's interstate highways, any highway in the state, or 75 miles an hour on a 2-lane highway. So if you're stopped and convicted of traveling 75 miles an hour or faster on a 2-lane, or 85 miles an hour or faster on the interstate, once your local case is done, that goes to the state, and the state imposes an additional $200 fine for that super speeder. And that is just focusing on the fact that everybody from the local guys on up to the state realize that excessive speed contributes to a lot of injuries, including fatalities.
Okay.
Could I add just one other one, because it's my pet peeve, and that's going back to the school bus violations and what a lot of people are confused about because we hear about it in court. I know the Cobb County School District, and I'm not sure about Marietta, but Cobb County School District has a policy that if they are on a two-lane road and there is a turn lane to the right, they will actually pull the bus into that turn lane before they execute the stop arm. And people don't understand that they still need to stop once those flashing lights come on and that stop arm comes out. But probably the most confusing is when we get onto the multiple lane highways. Cobb County School District has a policy that they will never allow a student to cross in front of the bus on a multiple lane highway to go across. It's always a right-hand exit out of the school bus. But if it's a multiple lane that is not some type of median, concrete median or something like that, then the traffic on the other side needs to stop. If it's one of those with what we call the suicide lanes, the yellow lines that Officer Circadakis was talking about that are left turn only, they need to stop on the other side. If it's one with the concrete median or the tree medians or something like that, then they don't have to stop in the opposite direction, but all traffic must stop behind that bus, no matter where they are. And especially it's confusing because some of the people would have come to court and say, gosh, well, the bus turned into that turn lane. I thought they were going to go into the neighborhood. That's why I didn't stop. Well, you still got that big red arm that's coming out to the side and those big flashing lights that the last time I saw said stop. So they need to understand that children's lives are at stake. With that, I think in the video it talked about one of the cases that involved. There was another case in East Cobb where the lady actually didn't realize, I guess, that the school, she was an elderly lady, didn't realize, and she went to the right-hand side of the roadway and mowed down the child who was coming off the bus. So pet peeves of mine, stop for the children, stop for the bus, and if you're unsure, stop for the bus.
Very good point. Thank you.
One addition to that I'd like to make, you spoke earlier about the difference between second degree and first degree vehicular homicide. Another offense that will result in a first degree vehicular homicide is passing a stopped school bus. Mm-hmm. And that lady who you just spoke of, it was on Davis Road, and that incident was the impetus to the stop arm system being put into place. But she passed the stopped school bus, unfortunately resulted in the death of that kindergartner, and she was charged and convicted of first degree vehicular homicide, and that's a felony offense.
Okay. Trooper Trawick, let's talk a little bit about your reports, and it's not singular to GSP. Every law enforcement agency writes reports on traffic violations. If I'm in an accident or witness an accident and I get a copy of the police report and it's wrong,
Yes, ma'am.
what should I do?
Let me just go through how I work on a crash. When I'm done with the on-scene investigation, I hand all parties what's called the driver exchange. It has all the driver and vehicle information on it. On one side, on the other side, it has the number at my post, which you can call, and I say call this number in 3 to 5 business days. Give Secretary the crash number at the top. She'll tell you how to get a copy of the report. If you get that report and you have a dispute or disagreement with the report, all you have to do is call me and say, look, this is not what I said, or this is what happened. You know, a lot's going on the road sign. Interstate traffic, you know, going by, a lot of things going on. Sometimes things get misunderstood, or I might jot a note down incorrectly. It happens. Call and talk to me about it, and I can say, well, this is what you said, but the evidence told me otherwise, or, oh yeah, I remember you saying that, and I can amend a report, you know, right then. Mm-hmm. So it's not that's not concrete. That's a finding of my investigation. A lot of times people will say that didn't happen. They'll say this happened, and I say no. You know, evidence shows me, because everybody sees something different in a crash. You can have 5 people involved, and all 5 of them will see something different. So I have to put the pieces together, and that's what we're trained to do, is look at this evidence, because a witness statement will only take you so far. Sooner or later, you have to look down at the ground, you have to look at the vehicles, you have to look at the parts of the vehicles here, there, and yonder. So we see a lot of stuff. Sometimes you may dispute it and be correct to just bring it to the officer's attention.
Okay.
Can I add one thing to that? Because we experience some of this sometimes in court. You know, an officer may not write a report in every case. On a speeding case, for example, we probably won't have, unless it's, you know, 150 miles an hour on I-285, we probably won't have an incident report. And a lot of times, officers have their own brand of shorthand that they will put on those comment sections on the citation. Sometimes that happens before they give the copy to the defendant, and sometimes that happens afterwards, because it's the officer's responsibility to come into court if a trial is asked for and to testify about that incident. And somebody who's maybe coming to court 6 months later and maybe have written 300 citations since that time, unless they have some method of putting some notes down on that citation, because they're not writing a report, that helps them remember that incident specifically. And so we get a lot of times defendants coming in, this is an incorrect ticket because your ticket's got these words on it and it wasn't on my copy. So that officer's done, you know, that's not a problem to prosecute somebody because the officer has written down some notes on that citation later that may help them remember that case in court. So we get that complaint a lot of times from individuals. So we just wanted to make sure that that's not a get out of jail free card. We're not going to dismiss your ticket simply because it may have some notes on it on our original version that comes to court.
We put things on them like I'll note on the citation the lane, if I can identify the lane. Sometimes when it's dark or night, you can't identify that. If I can't do it, I don't put it on there. The lane I saw them traveling in, whether they were overtaking the traffic around them, whether they're on approach or going away, and usually the distance that I checked them at. So those notes usually go in the officer notes section of the citation, so it's there for their record and mine. They don't know what it means, but that's what it means.
Okay. And we hear a lot about cameras now, car cameras, body cameras, that sort of thing. In your respective agencies, are each of your patrol cars equipped with cameras?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Do they always work?
Well, in Cobb County, we have a new camera system that's only been in place for a couple of years, and we've had very good success with that camera system. I believe we have a policy stating that you will not operate the vehicle if the camera system is not operational. So
Okay.
the officer needs to find another car with a camera system that's working.
And are the cameras operated on a traffic stop, on every traffic stop?
Ours are set up to, as soon as in fact, ours have been redone here recently as well. If the police officer activates his lights, his siren, his PA microphone, if he's involved in a crash, and there's even speed sensors in the police cars now as well that will automatically trigger the camera, and that's done to the benefit of everybody, both the police officer and the public. To kind of piggyback on what Officer Jones was saying is that obviously we are a government entity and we are outfitted by the lowest bidder, of course, but we do have the same similar policies in which if camera systems or equipment in general isn't working, we typically deadline that vehicle until it is brought up to speed. We take a lot of strides into making sure our camera systems are working efficiently. It protects us just as much as it protects the public that we serve from complaints and any wrongdoing. I wouldn't operate a police vehicle without my camera.
And I think that's a very important point, that the cameras are there, number one, and at least in my opinion, maybe the officers will disagree, for officer safety. And believe it or not, as the trooper said earlier, not everybody tells the truth in a criminal case. And sometimes allegations are made about an officer, and sometimes it's very satisfying to say, would you like to look at the videotape and see that what you have said is not true? But it also aids us in our driving under the influence cases. We have the evidence there because juries want to see the evidence on a video because that's what they see in their 1-hour crime TV show. That's the way it works there, so they want to see that. So I think the cameras are important for the car cameras are important for a myriad of reasons, officer safety being number one, in my opinion.
Okay.
They do break though.
Of course they do.
They're machines, they
They're-
break sometimes.
Absolutely.
We're all been through that, and we like having the cameras on there despite what some people may think.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some specific, well, actually, we do have a question about cameras while we're on that topic. Do we have red light cameras in Cobb County? You don't have to tell me where, but, do we have red light cameras, and, what's the penalty for, how do they operate, and what's the penalty for getting caught by a red light camera?
I think the city of Marietta may be the only jurisdiction in Cobb with red light cameras. I'll tell you the locations. They're at Windy Hill and Cobb Parkway, Windy Hill and Cobb Parkway and Allgood Road, and the South Loop and Powder Springs. I'll tell you that they're contested a lot in the fact that a lot of people claim that they're nothing but revenue generators and that the city's just collecting money. I'll tell you that we didn't just throw these red light cameras up and sit back and collect the money. There was a lot of study that went into all of these intersections. In fact, I think there was 5 intersections in the city that were studied intently to try and find out which intersections they would best serve. We identified the 3 locations, as I stated, as being high accident-prone intersections. Officers were responding there all the time for car crashes, people running red lights, kind of reckless driving. And I'll tell you that when the cameras went up, we saw a dramatic reduction in collisions in those intersections. One, the camera does make people feel like they need to be a little bit more attentive because they do not want a citation. They don't want to get a fine in the mail. But it also identifies those bad drivers, and it imposes a punishment on them. And people don't like to take money out of their wallet when they don't have to.
Right.
They've been great. They are civil fines, so there's no points associated with it. It does not rise to the misdemeanor level like the solicitor was talking about earlier. It's a fine you're going to receive in the mail, and it's very, very similar to the bus cameras that you see. If you want to see the violation, we'll be more than happy to show you. A police officer does sit down and review the violation and make sure that yes, this car did in fact cross the bulk line when the light was red. We're going to issue a citation in this case.
Okay.
They are very effective, but obviously when you're paying the $300 fine out of your pocket, you probably don't agree with it. But you won't run that red light again, I promise you.
Right. We're talking about equipment. So let's talk about how sometimes the equipment that we have can not only be frustrating, but can also cause us to question what we're supposed to do. And specifically talking about red lights. What do you do, Officer Jones, when a red light is out? What's the traffic yield, and what is each flow of traffic supposed to do at that time?
If the red light's completely out, if the power is out at the intersection and the signal is completely dark, drivers are supposed to treat that as a 4-way stop. It can be difficult when you have 4 lanes of traffic on each roadway to decide who goes where, but that's the way the law is written, is that it is a 4-way stop. So if you approach the intersection at the same time with someone on your right approaches that intersection, you both stop. The person on the right has the right of way to proceed.
Okay. Trooper Trawick, let's talk a little bit about things that we might see other people do. We see another driver cut somebody off, or we see an accident and a driver pulls off. As citizens, we want to, A, make sure people are okay, and B, call for help. But what's the best course of action for a citizen to be helpful but not get in the way in those incidents?
Well, let's take both instances. The first being a cutoff and road rage. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
All right. In that instance, certainly you don't want to put yourself in a position of involvement in somebody else's anger, frustration. The best thing to do is, if you can call in real quick, if there's solid confrontation between the 2 parties that you're witnessing, best thing to do, call 911. Remember everything: descriptions of the vehicle, description of the person, what you saw that person doing, the person who is angered by whatever reason. If they flee, certainly do not take off chasing them down, because we don't need you breaking the law to try to get them. The best thing to do, and this will involve a crash as well, if a vehicle leaves the scene of a crash, your second question, render what aid you can to the person left on scene. Remember anything about the vehicle that leaves the scene you possibly can. If you can get a tag number, that is the best situation ever. It doesn't matter if it's a little off. If you can get the majority, if not all, the tag number, that's the best thing you can do. Call 911 and render aid to the parties still standing by on scene.
Okay. Either of the other officers want to add anything to that?
Yeah,
Don't put yourself in danger.
I think he hit the nail right on the head. Just a 911 call. You expect us to do dangerous things? Let us do that. Don't get yourself in a bad spot.
Okay. Officer Jones, let's talk about pedestrian safety. What would you tell a pedestrian in educating them about keeping themselves safe in traffic situations?
Pedestrian fatalities are a very large proportion of the fatalities that we work. One of the violations that we see a lot is pedestrian under the influence of alcohol. And the law states that if you are a pedestrian, you can't be under the influence of alcohol to basically to the extent that you're less safe on the roadway. You can't walk on the roadway while you're under the influence of alcohol. And a lot of the fatalities that we see, that's a contributing cause. Otherwise, in crosswalks, if there's a crosswalk available, use the crosswalk. Wait for the light. Don't try to beat traffic across in a crosswalk. If just because you have a crosswalk there at that intersection doesn't mean that you can enter that crosswalk ahead of traffic that's coming to that intersection. You can't leave a place of safety, which is on the sidewalk, and dart into the road, even if you're in a crosswalk, in front of approaching traffic. So press the walk button, wait till the walk sign comes on. Traffic has a red light, and then you can cross in the crosswalk on your walk signal.
Okay. What about in areas where there are no sidewalks?
If there's no sidewalks, there is a law that says that you cannot be on the roadway if there's a vehicle that is approaching within 1,000 feet of you. So you have to be on the shoulder of the roadway out of that lane of traffic if there's approaching vehicles.
Okay.
If I could add to that, one of the many types of cases that we see, many of our CCT stops are not at intersections, but they're close to intersections that have crosswalks and traffic lights. And what we see a lot of cases of folks getting off the CCT bus and darting across traffic right where the bus lets them out. That is not legal for them to do. They need to walk down to the crosswalk, wait for the lights, just as Officer Jones said. And that's for their safety and for the safety of the drivers on the roadway. Many of these cases that we see happen at night, 9:30 at night, and you have a mother dragging 4 children across South Cobb Drive in the dark, not in the crosswalk. So very dangerous situations, and just because the bus lets you off there doesn't mean that it's legal to cross there.
Okay. Trooper, do you have a responsibility to call the police every time you're in an accident?
If both parties, let's say there are 2 vehicles, if both parties collide, strike each other, damage is minimal, one party doesn't need a report, the other parties, maybe they're friends, I don't know. I don't necessarily work a report on every crash I pull up to. If so-and-so says, well, we've exchanged information, we don't really need a report for insurance, that's up to them. It's a lot easier to get your vehicle repaired, I think, with a report, but I'm not here to force anything on anybody in that situation.
Okay. And Officer Circadakis, what about I'm on 75 and my car breaks down in the middle of a traffic lane? What advice? What would you tell me as a motorist to how do I handle that situation?
I would encourage you to try and make your way to the right shoulder of the road. Now, obviously, getting out of the travel lane is probably going to be priority. If there's for some reason that you can't get the vehicle out of the roadway, remain in the vehicle and wear your seatbelt. I know you're not driving and I know you're just sitting in a lane, but that seatbelt will still work if you're in the vehicle and it's not running and it's just stopped in the middle of the road. The car will absorb more impact than your body will be able to take. The car always wins the collision between the pedestrian. I would encourage you to get to the shoulder of the road as best you can. And even when you're on the shoulder of the road, stay in the vehicle, because it will protect you in the collision better than being struck full on by the vehicle. I mean, I don't know if there's any other advice to be had, but
Call Hero, call 911. 511 is the Hero number, I believe. Sometimes you can't make it to the shoulder, and that's unfortunate because people are behind you. They just get angry. They go around you on both sides, whatever. Stay in your vehicle is the main thing, and keep your seatbelt on. There are times when I'm working a crash report on the side of the road, and if traffic's moving fast enough, I'll reach up and I'll pull my seatbelt down just while I'm sitting there typing on my computer, because he's right. It still works whether your vehicle's moving or not. That's the main thing is just keep yourself safe. Whatever happens behind you is going to happen. So just give yourself the best odds you can to come out of it.
Okay. Mr. Morgan, what is the prevalence that you're seeing of traffic citations for texting and driving?
Prior to the enactment of the law, or prior at the time of the enactment of the law, let me put it that way, we saw a spike in the number because the word hadn't gotten out. I think as with any new law, education is the key. I mean, you would think that it would be common sense that you can't type with one finger, hold the wheel with your two knees, and look at the screen the whole time and have it be a safe situation. But I think that with the more education and hopefully with the word out that there are fines associated with that, then people will stop doing the activity.
Okay, I want to stay with you for just a second.
Okay.
Because we have a specific question about drinking and driving. If somebody's pulled over for a suspicion of being under the influence of drugs or alcohol and they refuse the sobriety test, what are the consequences for that?
Well, it's all facts specific, but if the officer has enough probable cause to believe that that individual is under the influence of alcohol, they've witnessed some erratic driving, they smell the odor of alcohol on the individual based on their conversations with the person, based on their observation of the physical manifestations, bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, that sort of thing. The officer will arrest them for driving under the influence, and a refusal DUI is just as solid a case as a .25 DUI in our mind, and we prosecute those every day in court. It's an experienced officer who has observed a lot of things, has been properly trained, can make a great DUI refusal case just based on the observation. We had one officer several years ago. We had these DUI defense attorneys who were giving advice to their clients. Refuse everything. Don't do anything, and give these officers this little card to read that basically is something from the defense lawyer. Here, read this. The officer said, well, for your safety and for my safety, we're here on the roadway. I shouldn't be reading this. Why don't you read it to me? And the guy just fumbled over every word because he was obviously intoxicated. He refused the test, but we had great evidence because of the experience of the police officer and what they observed on the roadway. We talked about the videos earlier. They're great to have, but we can go forward with a videotape that doesn't work when we've got an officer who has been trained real well and very observant and has written a report that just lays out the DUI and zips it right up.
Okay. I want to take a second and let each member answer this question. We've talked about safety and driving. One of the things about I spend a lot of time in my car, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well. If we were to put a care package together for our vehicles, what advice, especially young drivers, would you give us to always keep with us in our vehicles?
Well, depending on the time of year. This time of year, you want to have a blanket, stuff to keep warm. I carry a sleeping bag in my patrol car just in case. You know, we had the snow apocalypse last year that was a lot of fun to be out on the interstate for 20 hours in. You know, snack food, granola bars, things that don't perish that easily, non-perishables that'll last for a little while. Water, of course, something to drink. Water is what I mean. And in the summertime, you know, carry water and stuff like that. It's seasonal,
Okay.
but there are items to have just in case. Road flares would be good. Make sure you know how to use them. If you're gonna carry them, make sure you know how to change a tire, because that is a problem more often than you think.
Okay.
A little kit bag that you can purchase that has some jumper cables, has a flat tire fix, those types of things. I think this time of year, the one thing that we would always do with our boys when they were growing up is, you know, a bag of the road salt. If you've got a vehicle that is light in the back end, something to weigh that down. I don't care what our good northern friends talk about and make fun of us down here. You cannot drive on ice. They get to drive on snow. We don't get that pleasure at times. Ours is ice. So something to weigh the back end of a vehicle down, especially if it's a rear-wheel drive vehicle or a little pickup truck. But one of those emergency bags, I believe, is always good, along with what the trooper was saying as well.
Okay.
I would say they've covered all the good bases, jumper cables, knowing how to change a flat tire. The snowpocalypse brings to mind just I guess a safe driving tip, especially when it comes to the snow and ice. A lot of cars will go into lower gears. You've always seen that 1 and 2 and that little L on your gear shift. When you're dealing on icy roads or snowy roads, those lower gears are going to be a lot better for you to operate in. Not only can you use those gears to make your transmission brake for you instead of trying to use the friction of the tires and the icy roads, but it also keeps the tires from spinning you out, and it puts more torque into the tires to transfer more power to the roadway in those icy conditions. A lot of the people that we helped push out in the snowpocalypse and Snow Jam 2014 and everything else that it was called, a lot of times was, hey, put it in this low gear and just slowly push the pedal. And they were amazed at just the small. It was almost magic to get them out of their stuck spot. So that's all I could pass on that.
Very good tip. Officer Jones?
What I would suggest is a little bit of prevention is worth a lot of cure. Keep your vehicle well maintained. If you get below a quarter tank of gas, stop and fill it up. You don't want to be in the position that you're running out of gas. Watch your tires. If you need to buy new tires, buy new tires. Don't buy used tires. There's plenty of used tire dealerships that will sell you a tire for $10 that may have been sitting on their shelf for 10 years and be full of dry rot. So don't take shortcuts with your vehicle maintenance. If you hear your brakes grinding, you need to get that looked at. Keep your vehicle in running condition, and you won't have to face these emergency situations a lot of time.
Very good. It may cost us a little on the front end, but on the back end, it's well worth it.
Yes.
So thank you very much. One final question for Mr. Morgan. Is simply paying a traffic ticket, I know we can pay in Cobb County online now, so is simply paying a traffic ticket the same thing as being convicted or admitting guilt? How does that process work?
Yes, that's exactly it. If you go online and pay the ticket, then you are accepting the consequences of whatever that may be, the point system, the fine system that's available. So yes, paying the ticket online, or sometimes in some jurisdictions, because many of us travel throughout the state, some jurisdictions call it a bond forfeiture. They make them assess a bond, and they take that as a result of them missing a court date or not coming to court, and that's a conviction. It goes on their driving history, and the points are assessed to the Department of Driver Services. And if they, as I believe Officer Circadakis said earlier, if they accumulate a certain number of points within a specific time period, then the state of Georgia revokes their privilege to drive here in the state.
Okay, because it is a privilege to drive. It's not an automatic, and as each of you have pointed out, our goal is to keep people safe. and to educate drivers to be safe drivers and not necessarily to punish them, but to help in correcting their behaviors when they may not know or may not understand the severity of that. So thank you to each of our panelists for being here. Amazingly, we are out of time. We've covered a lot of information. I know one of the things I asked you about was we don't like to leave our audience without resources. So we saw a resource with Officer Jones with the video that you can get on YouTube. I know Georgia State Patrol has a website, the Solicitor General has a website, City of Marietta has a website, and Cobb Police has a website as well. So you can find a lot of information that we've discussed here with the panel on each of those individual websites. Again, thank you each and every one for being here. Thank you to our uniform officers for your response to us and keeping us safe as citizens. We appreciate what you do for us every day. I'm going to turn it back over to the Neighborhood Safety Commission to close us out.
Thank you. Thank you for attending and watching on Channel 23 this evening. We especially want to thank our dynamic panel members and our moderator. We are honored to have each of you as our moderator and our panel members this evening. Our community is very fortunate to have each of you protecting, patrolling, taking care of individuals in emergency situation, caring for the victims of crime, prosecuting the criminals, educating the community concerning driving laws and safe driving, and concerning and serving all citizens of Cobb County and Georgia. You are appreciated, and we thank you for your daily service to protect the citizens of Cobb County and Georgia. A special thank you to Cornelius for broadcasting this on Channel 23 this evening. Please join us Wednesday, February the 18th at 7 o'clock when our topic will be cultural diversity. Thank you. Good night.